Hi, everyone, and welcome. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the African Fashion Business Summit webinar series. My name is Dami Ademilokon, and I'll be hosting the webinar series. So I trust that we're going to have a great time, and I trust that everybody's going to benefit a lot from the lecturer, speaker, guest today. And, I look forward to the questions from the audience. I look forward to the comments. And I trust that, this is the start of, something extraordinary on the continent. We'll look forward to an amazing experience today. So, to start on the right note, I would like to talk a little about the African Fashion Business Summit. The African Fashion Business Summit is organized annually by Legendary Gold Limited in collaboration with the African Union. It has been held annually since 2016 at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. So it takes place once as one of the activities that marks the African Fashion Reception. You can read more about the African Fashion Reception on our website, www.africanfashionreception.com. Now, the African Fashion Business Summit is a platform that presents the conversation and execution of the business of fashion. But our core focus is on the continent, Africa. So we are hoping that the African Fashion Business Summit will be the melting point for the entire fashion ecosystem and all its value chains, to interact and find solutions to the various challenges they encounter in the course of, running a business on the continent. The African Fashion Business Summit is the connection for both the front and back end of the fashion industry, right? So it brings together fashion entrepreneurs, designers, manufacturers, retailers, investors, and fashion enthusiasts, to a common purpose. Now, our goal is to identify the various challenges, that the African fashion entrepreneur encounters across the continent and prefer solutions through our global network, right? We also aim to employ technology to support the African fashion ecosystem. And we also hope to identify and link innovative fashion startups that need investors to potential financial partners, to potential collaborations, with other African fashion brands on the continent. And also we aim to keep the conversation and the practice of sustainability, circular fashion, sustainable fashion, eco-friendly fashion, slow fashion, recycled fashion, reuse, rework. We hope to keep the conversation and the practice in the fashion value chain for the continent. So we look forward today to hear from our speaker, Dr. Spain, who will be sharing with us she will share with us, the model, the supply chain model for the fashion industry in Africa. And I look forward to having her on board so that I can say a few things about her before, she takes the floor. Hi, Dorcas.
Hi, Dami.
Hello, Dorcas. Hi, Dorcas.
How are you?
It's great to have you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So, first of all, I'd like to apologize for the mix-up. You were so punctual. You were here by 9 a.m., but it was changed to West African time, and I really apologize about that.
No problem.
Okay, so I'd like to say a few things about you. I want the audience to get to know you. So Dorcas is a creative consultant, and she brings with her over 10 years experience in fashion, apparel, retail, buying, branding, and supply chain management. She received a master's in strategic fashion marketing at London College of Fashion, and she has gone on to consult with independent brands and designers, in Europe and as well as Africa, West Africa to be precise. She's consulted with them on their business, the supply chain, and operations, as well as how to implement branding solution. Some of our recent experiences include working in a buying team for an in-house brand at an established UK-based department store, and subsequently managing, partnerships of a West African-based sourcing company. Also, these partners that she has worked with range, from international retailers and brands across Europe, Australia, and United States of America. And she has partnered with factories in Benin and Ghana, which is something I can't wait to hear about, because we are Afrocentric in this conversation, of course. So, and I think she's so keen on improving efficiency in production, business processes, and also building systems. These are areas of expertise. Now, improving efficiency in production, business processes, and systems is also something that Dorcas has, for the past 10 years, garnered as many experiences as possible. And she has developed a unique ability to encapsulate the essence of a brand, bring the brand to life, in creative ways, conveying the brand's identity, through unique ideas and concepts, through their products, their services, their branding. And she is a major catalyst for collaboration, education, and training within the creative industry, trying to bring about a change, for a future for sustainable consumption and production, especially in the African continent. Now, I would like to add that Dr. Spain is also the founder of Odate Affair. I don't know if I pronounced it well, so just
No, it's fine. That's
me.
sensitive.
Okay. Can you say it? Odate Affair. Odate Affair, right?
Yeah, Ode to Affair.
Okay. So let's get right in. I just like to ask a few questions about you. That's fine, before you take the floor in the lecture.
Of course.
So tell us about Odate Affair. Why did you decide? Because for someone with your expertise, I would have assumed that you would rather be in the ecosystem, trying to give as much as you want. So what inspired you you establishing Odate Affair? What inspired that?
Is actually where I run my consultancy from. So in terms of like all the creative consultancy I do,
Right.
whether it's supply chain management, branding, operations, it's a one-stop shop where I can kind of deliver those services. So Ode is it's an old English word for when you write poems or celebrate something, and Ophir is an ancient word for Africa. So most of my, as you're saying, most of my work and my background, it stems in fashion, but it has really been involved into incorporating my culture, my identity. I'm Ghanaian. My husband's Nigerian. I've grown up in the UK, but I've lived and worked in Ghana for a very long time. So it's been an accumulation of all my life coming together with the creative industries, which I love to enjoy. So the Odate Affair just kind of really embodies that and helps to have one-stop shop where you can come to us for. I also lecture, so it also, in terms of, for example, if you need any education support, your brand needs some supply chain management, consultancy, branding, operational, all of that just kind of embodies into one place where I and my team can kind of help you with kind of filling in any gaps you have.
Right. Okay, so I'd like to ask you about the education consulting. So what you do is you provide consulting services for aspiring students, or you help people figure out what they want for their, okay?
So I teach in a fashion college here in the UK. I specialize in fashion business.
College, please.
Say that again.
Can you tell us the name of the college, please?
Oh, Fashion Retail Academy. So it's in central London, and I teach in the course which is called Fashion Business and Retail, which is where I specialize in. I'm very keen on unpacking the side of fashion, which is sometimes overlooked. I know there's a lot of great creativity and great designers, but at the end of the day, we still want the creative economy to make some money, to kind of grow economically. So I specialize in the kind of like the business side of stuff, and that is what I teach. So when I'm talking about consultative education, it's usually for institutions that maybe want to go into building a curriculum which is a bit more African focused, or they're trying to find how to kind of conduct courses or workshops. Because I have also trained people on the continent, I kind of understand some of the nuances and ins and outs of things to consider within the education sector. So yeah, that's kind of
Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm having to ask more questions about this.
No, keep going.
For me, it's actually so much of a big deal that the continent needs to come up. We need to develop our own education, fashion education curriculum. Like when I think about African fashion, I feel there's so much information that fashion enthusiasts are oblivious about. The history, the roots, there's so many things in African fashion that a lot of people are unaware of, right? So do you see yourself probably lecturing in Africa or setting up an institution in the nearest future? Why do I ask this? In Nigeria, for example, there are a lot of fashion schools, right? But most of these fashion schools are they lean towards, training people on acquiring the skills of running a business or of starting a garment, production house. So all those basic skills of sewing, pattern drafting, and all that. But the other aspects of fashion education is yet to be, imbibed. People are yet to people are yet to realize that they can build a career in other fields of fashion. So do you have any plans for
me personally,
or do you have any plans?
Me personally, I wouldn't set up an institution. I think there are a lot of institutions. There probably needs to be more so a convening and a standardizing of it. I know Frederica was on one of your sessions last month or a couple of months before. She's a very advanced education consultant, and I know she has a passion in terms of trying to find ways to build a standard across the industry.
Yes,
so I'm very keen on collaborating with people like her. I know she's in the midst of kind of getting something sorted for that, and just try to encourage a bit more collaboration and decolonization of the system. So I personally wouldn't set one up myself because I think there is a lot of institutions there already. It just needs refining, and a bit of insight into how you can direct education for the continent, because a lot of times we just copy and paste from the rest. So whatever the rest is offering, we offer as well. So, but I think the culture, the heritage, the craftsmanship requires something a bit more different. So I would, for me, I'm quite excited because I've been behind the scenes. I have seen a lot of conversations ignite about trying to standardize the education system on the continent in Africa, and trying to find ways that you can make it not just about fashion design, but all the other parts which make the creative industries be an economic force.
Yes.
So that's from looking at supply chain, when we're looking at branding, when we're looking at PR, when we're looking at retail. It's not enough just to have people that can make or design pretty clothes. So I think it's interesting. It's an interesting time now because those conversations are starting to get ignited. I do think it's not a case. I would encourage people. It's not always a case of starting something new, but maybe doing a bit of research, seeing what conversations are happening, and then trying to engage in those conversations.
Right. Fantastic. I look forward to seeing what you have in store. I'm just going to stay glued to you, follow you all the way. Watch your projects, your participations on, whatever platforms or collaborations. And if you do come up, if you do set up something, kindly, share with us so that we can also put the word out, so that we can promote we can promote the needful. So without further ado, I would like to give you the floor so that you can, share what you have with us today. And I do look forward to sharing with you questions and look forward to the audience putting up their questions and their comments. And most importantly, I look forward to the impact of this webinar on posterity. Like I look forward to 4 months down the line, 6 months down the line, a year, 2 years, people coming back to give more feedbacks about this webinar because that's exactly what we're here for. So,
okay, great.
right,
So today, literally what I'm going to do is just give a brief introduction on supply chain management and some key areas to consider. Okay. And then I'll kind of go through it step by step, some key things to kind of remember with supply chain, specifically for brands and designers in Africa. And then, of course, supply chain management is such a big topic. So I've tried my hardest to just kind of take the key areas which I think you need to, which are important, so you guys can take. And then, of course, any questions that you want me to elaborate on, I can do so.
All right. So need to say you have about 5 minutes to work around the presentation, and we'll start the question and answer session.
Okay. To share the screen.
Yeah, you can share the screen if you want.
Can you see that?
Yes, I can. So I'm going to add it to this. Yeah, that's it. Okay. That works, yes.
Okay, so what I've literally done is pull together like just a quick accumulation of some key elements that I think is important to remember. So like I was saying before, it's very important for me. I'm always very much thinking about the commercial side of fashion and creative industries. So when I say commercial, I'm thinking about how can this product, yes, it's a great creative outlet, it's beautiful, but how can it sell? How can it grow as a brand? How can it penetrate new markets? How can you effectively communicate the story behind it? And then, of course, you're also looking at, is there a demand from this? Who is my customer? How can I get my products to my target customer? And all of those things are vital in terms of unpacking the whole life cycle of your product. So here's a quick diagram which kind of shows the different key elements. And you can see here now that it is much more bigger than thinking of idea and then just creating it. So you've got things like part of design and the product development, looking for vendors, sourcing your raw materials, deciding which factory you want to produce in, or if you're going to produce it yourself, how can you install some quality controls? And then looking at how you're going to ship and get that product to your customer. What kind of retail experience do you want this customer to have? And how can you ensure that you give them the best customer service experience? So some things to consider are things like customer awareness, which I mentioned already, target consumer, market research, identifying your unique selling point. So this is what's going to make me buy from you rather than your competitor. And then you'll be looking at how and where you'll be selling, and how you can kind of sort out your logistics and incorporate your brand ethos and story into your brand effectively. So once you've got an idea, I can't stress enough how important research is. I think sometimes I've met designers and I'm like, okay, cool. Have you researched your competitors? Have you researched your target consumer? Tell me in 5 words who your target consumer is. And they're like, oh, my friend. It needs to be much more detailed than that. You should have been able to unpack and research exactly who your target market is and how you plan on reaching them. I tend to tell brands to go back to that first step even before I engage in anything in terms of doing your own personal research about whether it's from your brand aesthetics to your competitors to your target consumer. Those things are really, really important. And then, of course, from there, you go into building your concept, creating, making, and finishing your product. And then the selling part comes towards the end. So in supply chain management, a key post that we focus on is the bit between the designer thinking of the creation and the product actually finally getting into the hands of the target consumer. So there are two ways in Africa that people tend to steer towards. So they either want to make their clothes in-house. So when I say in-house, it could be you might be the designer that's making it themselves. You might be the tailor. You might have your own personal person that you go to and will make all the clothes for you. Or you might have a sewing machine in the back of your house and you literally design and make them all yourselves. And the other option is for you to give that part out to somebody else, to a factory or to a manufacturer. So the first one we're going to look at is the pros and cons of manufacturing in-house. So this is if you are making your clothes yourself. If you might be self-taught, you might be giving them next door to a tailor that you're quite well versed with. And some of the good things about doing that is that you do get full visibility. You are in control of how you produce things because obviously you're taking charge of it. You get to streamline your operations a little bit, as in because you manage it, and you can cut down lead time, so you can decide when you produce that item. And then also you have some brands that might want to set up little mini workshops, so they would have their own workshop, and they will kind of hire like maybe a small team of 3 or 4, and they would be dedicated to making the clothes for them. The issue is sometimes with this, which is the cons, is that it is very expensive for you as a new brand to set up that system, to set up a small little production unit. You'll see that it does become a bit costly because you have higher overheads and stuff like that. You have to carry the full risk, so it is a bit labor and time intense. So you're the ones that's going to be looking after everything from beginning to end, so it does kind of take up much more of your time. You have to also be in charge of the raw material sourcing, so sourcing your own fabrics, trims and stuff like that. And also to bear in mind that if, for example, you are in a position where someone sees your garment, or an influencer or a celebrity wears one of your pieces, and you get a sudden influx of interest and sales, you might find it difficult to match that demand. If, for example, you are just working with a team of 3 or 4, you might not be able to meet that. And also to bear in mind that you might have access to the in-depth or experience or skills of people that might be working in a factory. So the other side is for you to outsource to a manufacturer. So when I'm saying the manufacturer, I'm talking about, for example, somebody that is a factory that have already set up. They've got quite a few people in there. They're making clothes. That is all they do. That is all they do. That is all they do. They might be making them for different types of clients and brands, and you would become one of their clients. So you will go to them, tell them, I want this made, tell them how many pieces you want made, and then they will kind of make that for you. The model that I talked about before is much more popular in Africa. So in the continent, you'll find that a lot of people are making stuff themselves. They are creating their own little workshops in their back of their houses, because it's easier to start up. In the global market of fashion, that is quite rare. So most of the time you will go to a manufacturer to get your garments produced, and you'll just focus on the business side, designing and maybe selling. So some of the good things about doing it that way is that you now have access to a company that has been doing sewing for so many years and have a lot of expertise. They also have a lot of range of equipment. So whether you want to do a bit of hand embroidery, some overlocking, some different types of ways, you can have access to that. And you also give them more of that risk, and it gives you the space and time to focus on other elements of the business. Some of the cons for this is that, of course, there are design limitations. You might be able to create something in your head or design something, and you might struggle to find a manufacturer that can make it exactly as you would like it to be made as well. So how do you decide whether you want to go in-house or outsource? So should I just set up my own little workshop, or should I go out and find a certified manufacturer to make my garments? How do you decide between the two? So there's 3 areas I would consider when you're making this choice: logistics, costs, and operations. So logistics, you're asking yourself, where's my final product going to be? How can I make sure that I'm producing close to my final destination for the product? What kind of speed are you looking for? Are you doing a fast fashion brand? Is it more slow fashion? What's kind of the ethos that you've got behind your brand? Because obviously if you need it quickly, then it's important for you to also choose an option that does that for you. And then also looking at things like cost. What is your target cost price? Is it cheaper for you to give it to a manufacturer after you weigh up all your costs for setting up a workshop? Is it still cheaper for you to do it yourself? So budgets and costing is very important, and I'll go into a bit of this later, but costings, I can't stress how important costings are, which is why I always say that you should have done your research and your financial plans in your business as soon as possible. And then looking at operations, what are your team's core competencies? Do you have access to people that are highly skilled in garment technology and garment production? And is there capacity for you to take on big orders if they do come in? So if you do decide to source a manufacturer, I put together a quick checklist of some key areas to go through before you source or confirm with the manufacturer. So the first thing you want to do is work out what you want that manufacturer to do. Do you have the fabric, access to fabric already, and you give them the fabric and give them the trims and let them just put it together themselves? Or do you want them to source your fabric as well? Do you have the pattern pieces already made, or do you need them to do that as well? So you need to decide what exactly you want from your manufacturer, and then try to see if they can meet those needs. Next one is important. Make sure you do great research. I always suggest it's better to go with someone that has been recommended to you. But of course, now you've got Google to look at different places. If you are deciding to do it outside of your local remit, like for example, you might be based in Nigeria and then you decide to produce in Ghana or decide to produce in Benin or something, make sure you do kind of make some room to visit them. And then the next thing is to shortlist. I always say start locally and in your proximity, and then kind of go out. So that way, you know, you've got quite good access to your manufacturer, and that it kind of makes logistics a bit more easier. And then finally, before you agree to anything, please make sure you do a visit. Before you confirm a bulk order, make sure you visit and you're happy with how the space looks as well and how they run their operations. And then also make sure you discuss things like timelines and prices, and you have that all confirmed and in writing. This is just a quick snapshot of some questions that you can ask the manufacturer. So looking at things, MOQs start from minimum order quantities. So some manufacturers might say that the minimum amount of garments we can make for you is like 10 per style or something like that. That is because
you can see the other slides, just on the first slide. Yeah, we can only see the first slide, intro to supply chain.
Oh no.
No, that's okay. You can just probably just click on the other slides, if that would help.
I've clicked next. They've changed on mine. Let me start again.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that works now.
If I make it, can you still see?
Yes, we can see that now. I can see it.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a quick snapshot of some of the questions you can ask a manufacturer. Like, what access do they have to raw materials? Do they practice any sustainable and ethical ethoses? How long will it take you to make this garment that I'm asking you for? And maybe also ask to look at some of the stuff they've done before. Sometimes I've realized working with designers in Africa is that they are hesitant sometimes to use a manufacturer because they are worried that their designs might get stolen, or that they're working with another designer who they see as their competitor. But just to emphasize that your design is your design. Like in fashion, obviously a lot of ideas are recycled, but it is important that obviously you also express and you get things in writing about what the contract is between yourself and that manufacturer. So when I say raw material sourcing, what I'm talking about is all the key components that go into your garment. So we're talking about your fabric, your trims, like your zipper, your button, your labels, all of that stuff are your raw materials. And when you are looking for them, it's important that you realize that you're creating a product for consumers. So you don't want them to get a lovely looking picture that looks great on Instagram. They buy it, and the first time they put it on, the button breaks, the zipper gets stuck, the fabric is, as soon as they do one wash, it's falling apart. It's really important that you kind of analyze and make sure you purchase the best type of fabric and raw material possible. So that will be making sure that the garment is fit for purpose. So if you are wearing, making a dress, have you made sure the stretch goes across the right way, and stuff like that? Is it fast fashion, or is it long? Is it more of a luxury item? If a customer is paying more from that, you can expect that they would want that product to last a long time. And then you need to look at things like care information and testing. So you can just do basic in-house testing, like when you buy fabric, cut a little piece of it, hand wash it. Does the color all run? Does even you hand washing it make a hole come into it? You test it first so that you don't get no surprises once a customer buys it. And then access and craftsmanship. So if you're using more indigenous and heritage-based fabrics, like you might be using ashoke, kente, batik, all of those more artisanal type fabrics, make sure you find ways to communicate that narrative and also educate people on how to care for those products, because they do sometimes need a bit more delicate care, and they also need people to obviously to understand that it is an artisanal product. So every one you get might not be the same, if that makes sense. So quite a big topic of discussion which has been happening of late is things like, you've heard the buzzwords ethical, sustainable, and stuff like that. They are big topics of consideration. Designers in Africa and in the continent particularly have a lot to contribute when it comes to ethical and sustainable considerations, just simply based on where they are creating their product. So, and it's important for you to kind of consider it. I don't think you should get too overwhelmed with trying to tackle every single ethical and sustainable issue. Maybe just choose one or two that you want to focus on and how you can build that up. So your thing might be really trying to get people onto a living wage, and you're going to create good working conditions for them, or you're trying to get more people employed in the area that you are in, or you're trying to reuse waste products from the secondhand market and recycling products and stuff like that. Or you might take some of your money and give it back to a local charity or orphanage or something like that. So you can just choose which area you want to specialize in. Don't get overwhelmed with trying to do all of them. Just try to find an area that you know maybe can really build on your brand. So the next thing I wanted to kind of just highlight was product development. So this bit is especially important if you are doing it outsourcing your production. I would still advise, even if you are doing it in-house, that you still do these things, because in the event where you might need to expand quickly, you have a good library and documentation of your garment and the history of your garment that you're doing. So a great place to start once I've done a little timeline of where you should be kind of moving through. The first point is looking at research and analysis. So let's do the example of maybe you're starting a sustainable brand. So you should be looking at past collections that have sustainability in it, what kind of fabrics you want to use, how are you going to do this, and how you're going to kind of execute it. And then you're going to be looking at developing your concept. So starting to think about what kind of piece should I put in this collection. I've got a trouser and a skirt and a dress. Okay, maybe I should think about adding a top piece so that people can multi-buy and stuff like that. Then you're going to start making your sample and preparing for that. And this is where you start things getting a bit more technical, where you'll need to be looking at pattern making and sampling and stuff like that. And then next, you've got your actual development of that sample. So seeing your sample, trying it on, modifying it, making any amendments to it, and then obviously grading it to different sizes if you're doing a ready-to-wear collection. And then once you're happy with that product and you source all your materials, then you'll go into manufacturing. So one thing that I advise designers to have is to keep a log of their product. And that just makes it easier because, yes, you are a designer, but if you was to kind of outsource it to a tailor or a manufacturer, all of you should be reading from the same sheet, so that no matter who's doing it or no matter who you're communicating to, you're getting the same output. One way that we do this within industry is via a tech pack. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's quite, you can kind of literally design these yourself, or when I'm teaching my students, I will kind of help them create one. But it just is an overview of all the key elements of your product, going from a quick sketch to maybe some fabric swatches to a list of all the materials that are in it, to measurements and stuff like that. So it's got all your key identification. So you might be telling them, here's going to be a top stitch. Here we're going to have some overlocking and any key points that you want to communicate about how your product is made. This way, if everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, customer A can buy a product, customer B can buy a product, customer C can buy that same product, and they will each get the same quality. Yeah. And then you can also include things like measurements when you decide what measurements you're going to do. This is for those that do ready to wear. Obviously, if you are bespoke, then you'll be wearing it, making them according to the measurements of your client. But if you are doing ready to wear, then measurements are an important aspect of it. And then also you can keep a log of any sort of amendments that you make as time goes on. So then you'll be able to easily see, for example, if 2020, you had a bestseller blouse, and you want to bring that back, you can go back into your archive, look for that particular style and see how you might want to revisit it and create a newer version for 2022, for example. And then just keep a nice log of all the developments that you've made for that particular style. So it kind of becomes like a story or journal for each style, and it just helps you make sure that you keep log of everything as well. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the different teams or different roles that you might want to consider, even if you are, for example, setting it up in-house. Sometimes these 4 people can be one person, but these are just some of the key roles that are important. So pattern maker, these are the people that make the patterns and the base so that you can do them in multiple sizes, and every time you cut, it'll be to the same size. They will make those actual patterns. They're those things that you kind of get out. You get cut out from the card to lay on the fabric and cut round. Then a cutter who will be able to make the most efficient use of that fabric, lay them in the right way, make sure the bias is the correct way. Then you have your sewing machine operators who will actually put the garment piece by piece together. And then finally, you'll have your pressers and quality checkers who will make sure the garment is finished perfectly, cut off any loose ends, do any hands finishing, and press it and pack it so it's nice and ready to go. In order to make sure that, especially if you are making to be sold, for example, in someone else's boutique and so another shop, and they've told you, okay, we want your products in 6 weeks, it's important that you can meet those deadlines. If you don't meet those deadlines, you do lose out on money. So keeping track of your time is what in the fashion industry we call a critical path, and they use this a lot across different type of industries, but it makes sure that you are staying on board of all the different key checkpoints that you need to complete in order to get your garment done and ready to go for the allocated time. And then in that, one thing that is important for your brand and for your reputation is that you have got a good quality assurance checklist. So you're checking the quality that comes out before it even reaches the customer, so that you are quite sure that whatever the customer is receiving is of high standard, high quality, and they'll be happy with it. I would always advise these brands to create their own guidelines and find ways to reinforce the system. So, for example, you might say that our measurements are all going to be 2 cm within the size that we've agreed. Or you might say that the label always has to be on the left-hand side or something. Always make sure you've got some good standards in place that you know that everyone can then follow. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up and take any questions is looking at costing. This one is quite a big one, but I'm going to just touch and highlight on some of the key things to consider about costing, because it's quite a big thing which can determine a lot of different steps you take within your supply chain. So it is so important that you consider costing, because you go and you bought a t-shirt for $29 and you don't realize how much of it is actually, by the end of it, how much actually the company actually gets to keep. You can see here that the profit to the brand is only like 12% out of that $29. Once they take out their retail costs, their material costs, their transport costs, their overhead costs, if you've got a workshop, your workshop costs, paying the worker that put it together, all of that stuff, you realize that the percentage that you then finally get at the end can sometimes not seem a lot. So which is why sometimes some designers do struggle to make a profit and keep going, because they haven't done their numbers. So when you're working out or calculating your price, and this is just even just the CMT price, so there's price to cut, make, and trim. So that's to make your product. The things you need to consider are people, place, and profit. So if you are a manufacturer, for example, this is specifically important for you, because you will be taking into consideration your labor costs, your managerial costs, any taxes or insurances that you might need to pay for. And then for place, these are all your overheads, like the running of your machines, the electricity, the water, etc., your rent. And then of course you still want to make a profit from it, so you'll be adding on a commission or percentage on top of that in order to make a profit, while still making sure you are competitive. So that will be your CMT cost that you get from a manufacturer, or from yourself if you make it yourself, how much the tailor will charge you. And then what next you need to think about, another cost that goes into your product, is the raw materials. So the fabric, the trims, the lining, the interfacing, the zips, all of that does add up. This is where it's important for you to get a skilled person, or you to do some research into how you can make the best use of your fabric. Fabric wastage just means higher costings. So it's important that when you're calculating your consumption, you've got your products laid out as best as you can, your patterns laid out, and you are trying your hardest to make sure you are making the best use of fabric utilization. And different factors may impact this. Like, for example, if you're using a pattern fabric or a fabric that needs to be custom bias, it's important that you consider all these things and the allowances, so that you can kind of make sure you've got a good, well-informed idea. So when you're trying to decide your pricing, there always needs to be room for you to be able to sell wholesale, and for you to also have your recommended retail price. So here's a quick idea. For example, the cost to make your garment, including the fabric, might be like $6.70. When it's sold to the retailer, this is your wholesale price. So this is not you selling it direct to customer, but you sell it to another boutique or shop or something that will then sell it on. You might sell it to them for $15, but the recommended retail price could be about $50. So you will sell it on your shop for $50, but there's still room within that $50 for you to now sell it to a boutique or retailer of some sort, and for you to still make a profit. So it's always good to kind of think of your numbers that way. The typical markup on designer fashions usually does range from 55 to 62% on top of your profit. So usually, like, the rule of thumb is to times it by 4, and that's usually how much you should be able to to sell it for, to times it by 2 at a minimum. So I think you need to kind of think about the buffer you want to have in your costings, how much you need to sell, because bear in mind that even if you are, like the example I've got here is, for example, like a basic dress, you might, the wholesale price might be $50, but you're selling it, your recommended retail price might be like $130. Yeah, you might feel like, oh, that's a lot of money you've added on to it, Dorcas. But when you go back again and you remember, you haven't paid yourself, you haven't paid your overheads, you haven't paid your staff. From that, you've made $70. So just think about, by the time you look at your profit, there's not a lot going into it. And that is for just basic clothing. For stuff which are more like premium and luxury, which has a bit more overheads for branding and marketing, you will find that sometimes the retail sale goes much more higher. So I've got an example here for $150 is a wholesale price for some premium denim, and they'll sell it at like $375 or $400. And that is to ensure that there is enough room to cover all that they need to do. What you then need to do is to make sure that you are competitive within your target market and within the sector you're in. So look around, shop around at brands which are your key target demographic, which are made close to you, and then do some market research and see, okay, what is the most my client is willing to pay for this t-shirt or this trouser, etc. Then what you need to do is work backwards then and decide if I can only sell, maximum I can sell this dress for is $50. I need to find a way to make sure that my cost of making this product is no more than $7. So you might be like, oh gosh, okay, at the moment now my fabric costs $6 and my production costs $8, so it's coming up to like $14 already. That's already too high. You need to find a way to get that within cost. If it's not possible, then maybe you're looking into the wrong area. But I would advise you not to start with such a tight margin, because you could be setting yourself up for failure. So that's quite an important thing to kind of consider. And that's how I kind of wanted to wrap it up, to be fair. So I know that was a quick whistle-stop tour of looking at the different elements of supply chain. As I said, it is so vast and so deep, but I'm hoping that you kind of picked up some areas that might be of interest to you, that you might want to then go and research further and look at a bit further.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. For me, that was more than an introduction. I personally have a lot of questions to ask, but what I've done is that I put together a few questions that I think that many people would have, and I'm hoping that people would also share their questions in the comment section below. Hi everyone, please, if you have questions today or any other day, kindly put your questions in the comment, post your questions in the comment section below, and they will be attended to. So my first question, Dorcas, is, can a person specialize in just one aspect of this supply chain? Because it is huge, it is massive. So can I, as a fashion enthusiast, choose to just focus on logistics, in the whole supply chain, or on no supply chain, or can I focus on buying? Can I focus on working with garment manufacturers? Is it possible to actually build a career in that light?
Yes, definitely. I would even advise specializing. I think I've been fortunate because I started off in buying, then I went to sourcing, then I went to production. I've been able to get touch points into all of them. But I would advise that that's a quite rare opportunity. But if there is an area that you have keen interest in, go into it full force and become an expert. There is such a desire for experts in areas like logistics, in garment production management, someone that can manage a factory, someone that can manage the logistics, someone that is well versed in retail, who knows how to set up a retail store, that knows how to price and cost things so that it's correct, that knows how to merchandise. So the area of supply chain management is big. Fashion retail is big. So if there is a particular element that you might like dressing windows, you might be interested in numbers, so merchandising might be your thing. Take that and run with it. I think that's important. So yeah, definitely there's a lot of scope and room for you to focus on a particular.
What happened? Okay, so I think we had a bit of a problem there with the internet session. Okay, so we're just gonna wait for Dorcas to join us again. And okay, here she is. She's back.
I think.
Oh, hi, Dorcas.
I
guess that was
sorry.
Glitch. Hello? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, can you hear me? Hi, Dorcas. Can you hear me?
It was a bit choppy.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, right. So we got that. Thank you for that. It's possible to specialize and build a career. For instance, I can choose to just be a merchandiser, right? I can choose to just be a buyer or a sourcer. No, will I call it a sourcer or a sourcing expert? What do you call that? How do you describe a person whose specialty in fashion industry is to source raw materials or source whatever? How do you call that? Hello, Dorcas, are you there? Hello, Dorcas. Okay, so I think we're still having a bit of a internet glitch with Dorcas, but the conversation has been amazing so far. I think I am quite aware of one major point she made that I think needs to keep. We need to reiterate this to ourselves as fashion designers and fashion enthusiasts or fashion industry players, and that is research. Research is a huge part of building a career. Research is a huge part of fitting into the supply chain. Hello, Dorcas, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello, Dorcas, can you hear me?
Yeah, the internet is a bit unstable. You keep breaking up, so I've taken off the video.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll just move on to the next question. If you can hear me.
Keep freezing.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. So I think I would just put the question in the comment section and then just share it. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, so this is another question. How do you choose a manufacturer? Hello?
Yeah, have you put in the chat?
Yes, I have. Can you see that? How do you choose a manufacturer?
Hello.
Hi, Dorcas. Can you hear me? Okay. It's becoming a bit of a... Hi, Dorcas. Can you hear me now?
How do you choose a manufacturer?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you, Dorcas. Okay. So how do you choose a manufacturer?
Okay, so I can see your question. How do you choose a manufacturer?
Yeah.
So what I would say in terms of choosing a manufacturer is that you start to consider what you need from that brand. So, and what your brand needs. So start by doing a bit of a look around at Google, asking your friends and family of anybody that you know or any kind of companies that can manufacture. And then what you want to do next is you want to start to kind of ask them some key questions, like what have you done in the past? How long would it take you to make this particular garment? Do you have access to the raw materials and fabrics that I need? When you start to ask those key questions, I would always ask to have a visit to that manufacturer, and then your next point of call will be to kind of instigate and start a sample being made, which they most likely will charge you for, but will take it off once you do place an order with them. So you do a commission to do a sample, and then from that you'll be able to see if you're...
Okay, seems like the network is really poor. The internet seems really poor. Okay, so I'm just going to keep putting the questions out there. Hopefully you see them in time and you get to answer them. So the next question, Dorcas, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Are you there? Hello, Dorcas. Hello, Dorcas.
Yes, I can hear. Maybe take off your video and see.
Okay.
That takes up.
All right.
Data.
Okay. Can you see the question now, Dorcas? So this is from Precious. It says,
yeah,
can we get the PowerPoint slides for the session?
I actually don't have the PowerPoint slides available to share. They're not for I hope you guys took notes.
Yes. I took notes. I hope everybody took notes. But the video, this session is live and will be available for you to watch over and over again if you want. So you really don't even need the slides, right? There are the intellectual properties of Dr. Spain. So very precious. You can have the slides, but the videos are, they're here and they're available. Okay, so my next question, I'll just put up the question in the comment section.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so next. How do you protect your designs from manufacturers, from imitation?
Okay, that's a very good question. It comes up quite a lot of the time. So one thing that you need to understand, one thing within fashion, and I think everyone needs to understand this, is that there is nothing new underneath the sun. So people are going to create things that sometimes look similar to what you're doing. That's always going to happen. But one thing you can do is to make sure that your paperwork is always intact. That way you are shielding yourselves to make sure that you have covered all your bases. So what I tend to do is, for example, this tech pack that you're creating, the one that I'm saying that you can archive all your styles, you always date it, and at the bottom of it you write it's the copyright of whatever brand or yourself. That way, when problems arise, you have a physical copy which shows that I designed and created this in 2012. So your one that you're saying that you created in 2020 is obviously an imitation of mine. But please bear in mind that nothing can be imitated unless it is out there. So if you never actually got around to making the garment, it's difficult to prove your case. But one thing I would always advise from your manufacturers is that you need to write some sort of contract in it and include copyright information and privacy and sharing intellectual property. That has to be in your contract. Make sure that is in there, because that's the only way you can reinforce something at a later date.
Fantastic. Okay, so the next question is there a toolkit you can recommend, right, for fashion entrepreneurs and enthusiasts on documentations? So you for a few of the things you shared with us, you kept emphasizing have it written down, your non-disclosure agreement, contracts, write it down. Keep pointing that out, and I think it's really important. However, is there like a toolkit for entrepreneurs, where they can find templates such as this?
So unfortunately, no, there's not not one that I've found that's a one-stop for fashion, but you can tend to Google even just for example, MOUs, production contracts, and then just take those templates and amend it to your own. So think key documentations that I would say to definitely have. A tech pack, which kind of informs all your ideas. A memorandum of understanding, which is an MOU, which is probably going to be between you and your manufacturer or anyone else you interact with, which just explains the nature of your relationship. And then, of course, a contract once you produce. The contract which you produce, I would then say for your manufacturers, and that should include things like intellectual property, prices, and all of that stuff.
Okay.
So that's key. I've seen some questions
to create one uniquely, right? You can just create one that fits, that solves the problem of your brand.
It's exactly.
Yeah. I think that not one size fits all. Okay, we get that. Okay, thank you so much. So the next question comes from Leye Adeleye. He says, would she be open to consulting for e-commerce companies?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I'm on LinkedIn underneath Dorcas Payne.
Okay.
My email address.
Okay.
Is can I type?
Yeah.
Oh yes, Dama, you have it.
I have it.
Yes, so you can just put in the chat.
I'll just put it in the chat. Okay, so I'll just put in the chat, but I'll share the next question while I get the correct email. Okay.
So I see this one. Which of the various points in the supply chain would you recommend to enthusiasts who want to start out careers? I would say whichever one you have easiest access to. So if you are, if you've got easy access to a factory, maybe go in there, have a bit of a visit, see which pain points you might want to address and maybe expand on. If you've got quick access to a retail store, maybe go in there and have a quick look and see which ones you have good access to and what you would improve there. I would say start where you can actually get access to. So I know in the continent, some areas are not as easy accessible, like buying and stuff like that is a bit harder to get into because there's not a lot of facilities there. What I would say then is look at maybe look at areas which are a bit more close to home, which you can look at. So production, that's a good one, that area that sometimes you might have access to a production unit at locally to where you are. If there, you might go in and you might start to see, oh, okay, actually, I've gone into the store. The way they've visually presented their products could be better. Already, you know that you've got a bit of an eye for how to do visual merchandising. So look into that and start doing a bit of research on Google. YouTube is excellent in terms of just finding some key ways of doing things. So I would definitely say start there. But start from what you have access to. Don't worry too much about trying to do the whole supply chain. You might be interested in a bit more marketing and PR. Do a bit of Googling and YouTube and watch those videos. Go on LinkedIn, find some people that you know are in PR, send them a message. After they're open to have a quick chat for 10 minutes to give you more insights into what areas you might be interested in. But I do personally think that there's an area for each of you, but give yourselves the room to have a taste of it so you can make an informed decision.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, Dorcas. So the last question that I have is about Fashion Retail Academy London. So, you shared so much, and I'm sure all of these are part of the things that students will learn from the Retail Academy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is there you said you provide education, consulting services, and just to put the word out there, if people are interested in taking online courses or running a course at the Fashion Retail Academy, how do they go about that?
So at the moment, they don't do any online courses, and they are only physical courses where people can enroll into. So it's similar to like London College of Fashion or your other fashion colleges here in the UK, unfortunately. It goes through the same way of like applying, submitting a form, and then being able to obviously access and attend the classes in London. So it's not the most international friendly of approaches, unless, like a lot of the schools here, you have to actually be able to come here and visit. There aren't any really good short courses yet. I personally would advise kind of keeping an eye out in terms of the continent and maybe some access opportunities they might have there. And when I do know of any, of course, I'll share that as well. So for me, I teach like pre-degrees, so to speak. So it's all the information that people will need as like the foundation of their degree, and that's what I teach, for example. They are expensive though, studying abroad, which is why sometimes I don't always advocate necessarily people trying to learn or pay for that, if that makes sense, because it is quite, it's pricey.
Okay, so you saying that brings me to just, sorry, one more question. You say you don't really, it's pricey, so a lot of people might not be able to afford the courses. So that brings us back to Africa trying to solve these same problems.
Exactly. So it's just a case of us finding solutions on the continent are great. So Stadio, that used to be called Lysoft, they're in South Africa. They're a really good school.
Okay. What did you call the name of the school?
They used to be called Lysoft. They're now called Stadio or Studio.
Okay, Stadio. Okay.
They're in South Africa though. They're quite good. And then I guess it's really a case of just looking locally to see. And I'm trying to pinpoint the ones which have more than fashion design courses, but they are few and far between. But I'm hoping that in the next couple of years, that should change.
True. I hope to. We all look forward to that. Thank you so much, Dorcas. It's been a wonderful session. It's been enlightening. I've had a lot of my questions answered, and I'm glad that participants also had the opportunity to get answers to their questions as well. So is there anything you'd like to just say in summary, to fashion enthusiasts who will be looking to building a career in supply chain management? 1 or 2 words about.
I would just really encourage you to pursue it. It's a very lucrative career option, which is in high demand, and the skills are very much transferable. So you can be working in fashion and then move to fast moving goods or commodities. But the skill set needed for supply chain just requires a bit of analytical, good organization, being operational savvy. I would just encourage you guys to start thinking outside of the box about the different elements within fashion that you might want to venture into, because there's a lot that needs to be covered, and especially to help with the continent flourishing.
Okay.
But thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. Thank you so much. Right. You're free to take your leave now if you want to.
Okay. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Dorcas. Thank you so much. So, hi, everyone. That was a fantastic session. The questions were answered. It was brilliant. And I'm glad that, for a lot of you, you can always come back to watch the video over and over again. And for those that are interested in one aspect of the supply chain or the other, they can come here. She's answered so many questions that are very useful for a lot of people that are interested in building a career in fashion. She mentioned the studio in South Africa. We're going to put up the details on our social media platform of schools that are in Africa that are offering fashion education aside from the tailoring skills and design skills, the other aspects of fashion, that is the business aspect of fashion. And to this end, I would like to say a big thank you to everyone that has joined African Fashion Business Summit. We are ready to take the continent. You know, we have so much in store, and we implore you to follow us on our social media handle, African Fashion Business Summit. If you Google it, you can check, you can find our Facebook handle, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on LinkedIn, and most importantly, we would be putting up so many contents on our YouTube page, and we ask that you do not miss out. Don't sit on this one. Tell your friends, tell all the fashion enthusiasts, people who are students, professionals in other corporate fields, you know, across the globe, people who are in the fashion industry who are looking to navigate into other aspects, you know, other career path options in the industry. And we'll be working closely with a lot of designers, closely with a lot of professionals and specialists that are African. Africa is our heritage, and we intend to bring the solutions home. And these solutions were preferred by our people. So thank you for staying tuned to this masterclass session. We have more masterclass sessions coming up in the months ahead of us. So we ask you to follow us on Instagram, like, turn on post notification. Till we see you next time, my name is Damilola Ademelokun, and I am your host on African Fashion Business Summit. On behalf of African Fashion Business Summit, I'd like to say thank you and bye-bye.